Welcome to Because We Love You, a podcast dedicated to helping you live a life of wellness. My name is Stacy, and I'm here with my co-host, Jade.
Hello, everyone. This week we are talking about how essential our friendship is. So stay tuned, look at our show notes, and check us out.
As always, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook if you want to learn more, and you can listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
This is one of my most favorite episodes, I think, that we can do, hands down. It just is in the soul of me. It's about friendship and not considering friendship an accessory, but how essential it is.
Yes, friendship. We love it. We feel like we were made for it. I know not everyone is like that, but I think everyone is like that, but I think not everyone realizes.
We repress it. Yeah, they don't realize how much it can give. And I think that it, to me, has grown. I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, I like it a little bit. I think this is good. And then when I realized how it can be done so healthy, and it was like, oh my goodness, and now I'm addicted to it. I crave it, and I want more.
Yeah.
So I think that just introduces, like, what does friendship look like to you? What does friendship look like?
Okay, so when I think friendship, I think a lot of things. I think fun, of course. That comes to mind. Like fun, excitement, laughter, someone to share those highs with, right? But also, I just think of like connection and support, someone who is going to show up for you, who's going to be there for you and take care of you. We need people just to do life with.
Yeah,
what
you
about
said
you?
all the things, I feel like.
Sorry, I should have left
You
some
took
for
all the good ones. I think, though, a friend to me is to experience life with and new things. So that's just like a big thing. And and maybe that's kind of more to me, not just this vague, like what everybody needs, but I need somebody that's going to go to the hard places and the new things and going to feel adrenaline, going to feel fear with me. And so but I just think it's experiencing life. You say something, and we've said it multiple times, is like, we want to do life together. Like, I'm so glad I get to do life with you. And that's what I think, not somebody just to have chips and salsa with on a Monday night, but to also experience the day-to-day functions, like going to the grocery store, going shopping, or just laying around and just sitting there and saying, hey, do you just want to get together and just talk?
Yeah, that's so good. I think about just, we've talked about this before, how every year we spend New Year's Eve together, and sometimes we have big parties and we dress up and we get fancy. Sometimes we travel and we're somewhere new and exciting. But I remember one year that stands out is we wanted cookie dough or something random on New Year's Eve, and we went to the grocery store together. It was the four of us. And we realized we weren't going to make it home
before midnight
to ring in the new year. And we were just shopping at a grocery store, like ringing in the new year, just like we could have been anywhere, right?
Yep. But we stood there on the aisle with cookie dough in hand. And it was like, woo! Happy New Year! Like, this was so important to us at the moment.
But I think that, I think I brought up kind of the highs and the lows, but I think you're right. I think friendship is mostly about just doing the everyday things and those just feeling so good.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And it's so hard to me. It's like, if it's so good and we have so many good moments, right? And I think people know innately, like inside, they're like, yes, I need a friend. I need a friend. But we have this mantra, like, we can do it alone. We don't need anybody. And where do you think this comes from? Like, why is this such an issue with today and people?
Well, I don't think it's an issue for everyone. I think it's an issue specifically for Americans, but really anyone that comes from a culture that really emphasizes independence, because there are a lot of collectivist cultures where they don't do life the way we do life, where they really where they really do things together. It reminds me, we've been one of the books we read in preparation for today was this book by Jenny Allen called Finding Your People, and she actually refers to a story that was told originally by Brene Brown. But Brene Brown was talking about this community in Africa, this village where the women would wash clothes together. And it was this thing that they would do where they would go down to the river and they would wash clothes in, not super clean water. They didn't necessarily have all of the things they needed, she said. But as an outsider, when you watch this, you would never know, or there would be no awareness that they were living in a state of poverty. You would have no awareness of their struggles because they laughed and they bonded and they had community. But then something happened where they were able to sell some of their food. Many of them were farmers, and more resources started coming in, right? And if you remember the end of the story, the idea was that the more that resources came, the higher their walls were built, the less connection they had. They now could afford to buy like a washer and dryer. And these women became depressed. Levels of depression went way up in these communities.
Sickness went up, which was interesting. Such an interesting story. And you can't help but to correlate that to our current state of living. I mean, America founded on independence. Our independence, we can do this on our own. We can come to this new colony. We can build up our things. We're going to do it our way, which we celebrate, and which is a part of that is great. That that we want to teach our kids independence. We want to be independent, but then we've lost that dependency that maybe we truly need. And then America, known for its resources and everything that we have, and everybody has houses and things and all these things, but they're just putting up more and more walls. So maybe perhaps that's why America is one of the biggest societies that we really lack connection. And we see this so often. I mean, I told you before that my sister-in-law Becky from Brazil, she's talked about this multiple times. She moved from Brazil here, and they live here with my brother and their kids. And she just still can't latch on to the American culture. She's like, how do you guys do this? And I've visited Brazil a few times, and where they live, and their house is just open. It's just people come at any time, and they're not shocked by them coming. And it'll just be a random night. They'll be like, hey, we feel like having people over. And they'll just go get a big piece of meat, not plan anything. Say, come over, eat the meat, drink the wine, do all these things. And we've kind of lost can you imagine what happens when we try to plan a big party all of a sudden in America?
Yeah, everyone has plans. Everyone's
at
busy.
Soccer practice.
Even, I love that idea of dropping in on someone, dropping in for dinner, but we do not have things like that in our culture. Could you imagine just dropping in at someone's house? You would feel so weird. I feel like even at our house, when someone rings the doorbell or knocks on the door, we're like, who could possibly be coming to our home? Unplanned.
Side note, when you were my secret Santa, I sent a random stranger to your house and rang the doorbell, and she was they were all just who are you? So even us, we're just why? Why would some random person? But they were there to bring you a gift on my behalf. So those are fun moments. But no, we teach our kids this too. And that's kind of gets me to think. It's be respectful. Don't ask to come over to someone's house. Don't ask if you can come over. But maybe, a part of that is no, I really like you, and my kid really likes you. Can we come over?
Let's get together.
Let's go. Let's do something.
My daughter has not learned that social convention, by the way.
I love it. I love it. Just the other night, I was telling you about that. I was we were all kind of seated and comfortable, and someone got up to leave, and everybody, we could just feel maybe we're not going to hug this time. And she was just no, I'm not having this. And she just gets up and hugs, and then that made me yes, we have to hug. Why? So I love that. I love that about Addie.
Yes. And she's a big inviter, invites herself lots of places.
So it's so good. Yeah. And we know we're living here in America, and we're so happy to have these resources. But I feel we've got to know to break down these walls. But why don't we do it? Yeah. Why don't we put up the fight? Why do so many of us live lonely lives? What was the statistic we read this week about the loneliness and people who claim they don't have friends
Yeah,
currently
so
right
I
now?
think there were two important things that we read. The first one is just this idea that people now have fewer friends than they have over the past couple decades. Like if you compare now to 1990, people overall report having fewer friends, so our friend circles have kind of shrunk. But also, we research has found that people are 4 to 5 times more likely to report having no friends, not less friends, no friends. This is especially problematic for men. We're finding that it's about 4 times higher in women, but 5 times higher in men.
So crazy.
So crazy. And we've talked for, many weeks about, we did a whole series on community, how we're wired for community, how loneliness is so bad for us, and when we're looking at mental health and even physical health. But still, so much resistance to that.
So why do you think, what is your biggest, if we were to put ourselves in the shoes, like, and we love friendship. I mean, as you can see, and if you've seen her life being modeled, like it's one of our biggest things, but we still have issues and barriers that we've had to overcome. What's the biggest issue or barrier?
Yeah, because it's definitely not, it hasn't always been that way. So I would say, I think of a time, especially when our babies were little, when it was so hard just because of time. We were tired, we were serving, we were both, my husband and I were both working, we were balancing that, our family lived far away, and it's like things pulling us in so many directions. And it just felt like a thing that was really hard to make time for. Like, I have my husband,
Why can't I be happy with what I have?
Do I really need to go beyond that? Because there's just already so much going on. So I think the time thing is a big one, and kind of prioritizing friendship, like changing my mindset around that was a big one.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think it's like I could be willing to give the time. I'm willing to do a lot of things, but it's always that, are they worth the investment? Are they going to leave me? Like, it hurts so bad when somebody like, is out of your life or doesn't really feel the same way about you. And to know that like churches can divide us, and like we're moving away, or we're not going to this church. There's just so many proximity things that can divide you with friendship. And it's like, are they going to be the one that lead? Are they really here to fight for it? And it's just scary. And it's like, I don't want to pour all this in. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to bleed. I don't want to hurt. But it just reminds me that even this week, our girls are sitting in the back seat, and they're learning a memory verse for church. And they were saying it, and it's like, but this is what we tell our kids, and this is what the Bible teaches, is like 2 are better than 1. And so I think we just I personally just had to remind myself 2 are better than 1. It can be better together. And so to push through the fear that they will leave, because they might,
they might leave. Yeah, and people do leave, relationships end.
We had one end.
Yeah,
like we had a really good. We were. A group of 6, and the military took him away, and it was hard.
So hard.
So shout out to Sarah and Reese. That our hearts were broken, but we're happy for him. And we wouldn't, I think, like looking back though, like it's like, but we would never have forsaken that time.
I think
like,
that's right.
It was worth it. It was worth every minute, every time, every conversation, no matter how bad it hurts now. And we plant a seed, and we never know like what's gonna bloom out of that seed. Are they gonna come back? Are we gonna be BFFs forever again?
Yes.
Travel the world, but see, it's worth the seed. We have to think that it is worth it. I think another big issue, and why people don't fight for it, why people say, friendship maybe not essential for me, is the boundaries that it causes to push, and it's just like that uncomfortable.
That's an interesting point. And I think one thing, kind of like we were talking about before, like you don't just show up at your neighbor's house. You don't knock on people's doors. And I think one good thing to come out of the pandemic is it built a lot of walls up, right? That's not the good thing. That's a bad part. A lot of us built a lot of walls. A lot of people isolated. A lot of people, were sad. But I think the neighborhoods that people in close-knit, or they weren't close-knit before, but, neighborhoods, the pandemic caused us kind of forced us into our own little bubble.
Yeah.
And for us, we came out of it with great relationships with our neighbors. Like, we all just hunkered down together. We knew we had to isolate from everyone else. No one was going to work. No one was going out to eat. Everyone was having groceries delivered. But we knew at the end of every day, I mean, almost every day, we would be together. Our kids would run up and down the streets and ride their bikes and walk down to the lake. And we would sit around a fire and catch up and just talk about life, just stuck for months on end with no one going anywhere. Actually cut down on a lot of those boundaries, where now our kids just run in and out of each other's houses and grab drinks from the fridge and like, that's what you want in a friendship. But it's so hard for us to put those boundaries down, or now, like, just.
And this is just came to me just thinking is sometimes like what I see is even with our children, like letting other people like correct or speak into them. And that's a hard boundary, because like you don't want to like cross it, and you don't want to say things. But like when you're truly in relationship and community, you both have to allow like, okay, no, like, Mr. Bob, Miss Heather, Miss Jennifer, Miss Jade, Mr. Matt. Like, these are all people that I'm allowing to speak into your life. So you listen to them. And I think that that's cool for our kids, because even as a parent, it can be so easy to say, no, I'm the only one that can tell you no or whatnot. But you're like opening them up, because you have a little village.
Yeah.
Over there, so many people that are looking out. You even joke sometimes, you're like, my kids could get away with nothing.
Yeah.
Because there's like 16 eyes on the street at all times.
Everyone knows everyone now. Everyone's in everyone's business. Like, our kids are not getting away with anything as teenagers, because everyone has, Ring doorbells, and they'll, we all text back and forth. They're at this house now. They're at that house now. And but I love that for them. I love that for them. And
but it's still hard to do that. It's hard to leave your house open. It's hard.
It is.
I think even when at our house, we had a lot of youth in and out all the time. I mean, things get broken, things get misplaced, glasses, like somebody throws a ball and shatters the chandelier. You have to be okay with things not being perfect and things being messy sometimes, and it invades your space. But to encounter real friends, I think we have to open up our boundaries just a little bit, and that's hard. That is hard,
but necessary.
I think another thing to me that kind of is a barrier, and why we don't fight for it, or we get in friendships and we bail really soon, I think it's like jealousy.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you're on a path to something, especially when you find someone who has maybe similar interests and they're better at it, or have more attention, they have, more followers, they have feels like more people who like them, like, we just default to insecurity. Like, that makes us feel bad, either jealous or insecure, whatever that feeling is, right? And we can't do that.
I think it's important, like, I feel like you can feel it, and that jealousy is a true emotion. And what I tell my kids, and I have to tell myself this sometimes, I'm like, it's okay to feel this, but I can't act on this, because this is not an emotion that is going to breed anything good, because I cannot afford to be jealous. And it reminds me, I just like opened up to this story, you like just like a week ago. And it's not that I was hiding it from you, but there was just never a moment. And I thought this was a really good teaching moment, because these are the things that friendships end over. And I remember, and it kind of follows up your last story very well, but while Stacy's in the pandemic and her family is blooming and breaking down boundaries and connecting with all these neighbors and doing all these things, my neighborhood was not the same, much older neighbors, and people were not doing that. And so my connection was actually lessening, even though we still did make some connection with you guys. But that was a hard time for me. And like, jealousy wanted to creep in, the jealousy of, oh, she's going to connect with that girl more, or that girl, and she's going to start doing everything with them, and they're going to take my spot. Not that I have a spot to claim, but she's going to feed her heart in ways that I can't. And proximity, because we know that being close to each other really breeds that. And it was really some hard moments of where I had to teach no. Like, I will not do this. I will engage with them when I'm there. I want her to have other friends. I want her to, and I think to me, it was just constantly because I love my friend so much,
Yeah.
I want what's best for her. I've got to stop
Mhm.
thinking about me being the only one. And I think it would have been so easy to be like, well, I'm not going to, interact with the people of her
Yeah.
neighborhood. I'm going to keep separate, and our life will be separate and their life will be separate.
Yep.
And then never meshing. But fortunately, both sides came together. And it's just such a beautiful thing of friendship. And it kind of taught, I think, even for this episode, but in life and how I tell my kids, it's just a beautiful thing. Like, don't let jealousy, don't let my own insecurity that I'm not enough for my friend breed like relationship destruction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think over the years, this has absolutely happened to both of us, either old friends coming back in the picture or both of us, meeting other people through different places and having new friends, and how do you navigate that? And, I've certainly had moments, right, where that's hard and you start to feel insecure and like, oh, yeah, like you said, she's going to like her better. Or, it's just like a silly thing. But
isn't it?
Now when I look at, the friends we've made over the past few years through the pandemic and more recently, and how our friend group has kind of shifted and grown, just remembering, like we've talked about before, like there always needs to be a seat at the table, because the new people that have come into our circle have given us so much and filled in roles and filled in gaps that we didn't know we had. We had cracks and needs and just, places where people slot in perfectly, and, people that we both love and have fun with. And it's just, you never know.
Just keeping that open seat at the table for people. And I read a quote this week, and I think it kind of sums up insecurity. It's like, when you are insecure, you work for love, not from love. And we have to work from love. Like, I love you, so I will behave this way. And I will, I'm not working for your love, like, it's just like, And I mean, and it takes both parties, being, responsible and not finding a friend and leaving the other one and be like, I don't need you anymore. But when you truly are doing things in love, they feel it, they feel it, and we don't have, to be insecure about that. Such good principles. And I'm glad we're coming out
working
stronger.
through them. Look at us growing.
I mean, it's so easy not to. And I think that, when I hear people all the time, they let that be the thing that, like, oh, if she's going to hang out with her, then she cannot hang out with me.
Yep.
Or if she's going to do that with her. Yeah. And I think social media, we've talked about this before. I mean, it can have a negative effect there. It's like, oh, they went there without me. And I even think about that with our girls too. It's like, I don't want anybody to feel like left out. And it can be so easy, but we're still responsible for our actions.
Yeah. And how we, trying to control how we feel about that and reframing it, for sure.
Love it.
One other big one that comes to mind is, I think this links back nicely to the idea of living in kind of this culture that's focused on independence, is the idea of, like, I guess we've talked about it as like a fake strength, like putting on that mask. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't need people. Well, everyone needs people. So, that's not true. And we just don't want people to deal with our mess. And I think I get it. And I've definitely felt that way. Like, when I think of some of my hardest moments of, like going through loss in foster care or having a panic attack, like my default is to go to, let me fix this, let me get cleaned up, let me do whatever, and then have my people come in a lighter version of what just happened, I'll talk through it with you. And that's terrible. That's not what that's not what relationships are for. Like, you have to be willing, and this is way easier said than done, but you have to be willing to let people into your mess. And that might be, that includes your physical mess, like when your kitchen's a mess and homework papers are all over and the laundry's not done and your bed's not made. Like,
you have sharded underwear everywhere. Not everywhere. Just
maybe not anywhere for some people.
No, my kids definitely shard. Your kids don't. Perfect Addie and Evan. Non-charters. Sorry. That was a good moment though. Like,
That's real
vulnerability.
raw, right? Like,
Or the time where the dog got the tampon
oh my
out of the toilet trash, and like blood is like
Stop. Okay, that's
dripping
enough.
down.
Nope. We
And
don't need to go there.
that-
Gross. Let's just say messy things sometimes can get messy when you have children and dogs. I think is enough information for our listeners.
But you gotta be willing. You gotta be
You
willing.
gotta let people see your mess. And it's funny. A few weeks ago, some friends came over, and I said, I know you're our real friends now because I didn't even think about cleaning up my house before you came. Like normally I would like always at least clean the toilets and wipe down the sinks. And they walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about doing any of that today. I love you.
it.
Like,
You're there.
Yes,
You're
we're
there.
So you need people that you're just gonna let see that kind of mess, but also, and more importantly, your internal mess, your psychological mess, your all the things, like your worst moments. You have to let people into that. I think about just how powerful it was. I remember when I was in the middle of getting regulated on medication and I had the lowest of lows with my anxiety disorder. I was in the middle of a panic attack. I hadn't slept for almost 2 days straight. It had been almost 48 hours. And I just remember I was a mess. I hadn't showered in days. I wasn't eating. I thought I was going to die. And I remember you coming to my house and just sitting in that mess with me. Like, I was not even speaking really, like I didn't say anything, but I remember you.
It was an eerie time too because life was going on all around. Like your kids were playing basketball, and Matt was trying to hold down the fort, and it's just like, like these are these deep moments where you do need somebody, and I think to that though, like being there for you, but you're also there for me, and I think that's just such a cool thing. I think you can be open with your friends or with me because I can be open with you. That's right. And there have been moments where I have called you. One was last Thursday and just told you exactly how I felt right then. And maybe if I had waited 24 hours, I would have probably have had a terrible 24 hours and hit it all. And then maybe I was a little bit better on Friday because I was, but I could have had a better Thursday, and I did have a better Thursday, and that's because opening up sooner, not waiting until you've processed it all, but like, no, I feel this way right now, and you're in it with me, and we're in it together, and so that mutual need, that's what being in stuff together looks like. It's mutual.
And I would say it is not easy. It is hard in the moment, the hardest moments of your despair to let other people into that. Another example I remember just of your husband, this came to mind. When we first started foster care, we had our first placement. It was a very serious situation. Very sad that we took in this baby, and we're told, which of course we shouldn't have been, but when we went to pick him up from the hospital, they said, if you're saying yes, you're saying yes forever because there is no one. We have looked, there is no one that can take this baby. So if you're taking him home tonight, you're going to adopt him someday. And, so we had him not even 2 weeks, but it was our baby, it was our baby. We were going to have him forever. And they called one day and just said, oh, we didn't know, but we found a relative. And so we're coming to pick him up, right? Like right now. And Jace called me for something else, like right when I hung up the phone, right? And I think in those moments, I wanted to send it to voicemail. I remember like laying on my bathroom floor. I just got off the phone with the social worker. I was laying on my bathroom floor and just thought like it was awful. And my husband wasn't home. I was, home with just the kids, and Jace called, and I wanted it to go to voicemail because what do you say? Like, and I remember just picking it up, and I was bawling, and I couldn't even really say it was on, right? But I don't know. You can't let those calls go to voicemail, or you sometimes have to be the one to pick up the phone.
That's the line that I think they give us in relationships, and then when you do it, but it takes so much courage.
It is, and it's hard, and you feel bad because like I know my mess weighs on you. Like it's not just like like then when I'm going through something hard, I know it's hard on me, but I
Mm.
also know it's hard on the people I love, right? And in some ways you think, should I just keep it in? Should I just
Mhm.
keep them from it? But I think we're all better,
Mm.
when we can share
Get
those
so
things.
much more
Yeah.
perspective. So
Yeah.
many stories like that. But
Yeah.
I think the important thing to note is answer the call, say the
Yeah.
thing. When I called last Thursday and it was like, I'm coming over now. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like my initial thought is no.
Yeah.
Like absolutely not.
Yeah.
Go have a fun day. It's a beautiful Thursday. Do something. Practice your run. Do something else. Don't be
Yeah.
here with me. But then mainly because you do all this preparation, you read all this stuff, and then God even deals with your heart. It's like, no, come, I need that. I
Yeah.
needed that, and I needed a hug, and I needed the hair, and I needed the
Yeah.
ice macchiato,
Yeah.
and I needed all those things, and in
Yeah.
just an hour it was better. It was doable. There was hope. And I think those phone calls and
Yeah.
that's friendship can give you so much hope in humanity.
Yes,
too.
for sure. And on both sides of it, like, even I think that's an important note, like, even when people say no, like, just show up anyway. Like, if it's your person, if it's your people, if it's your tightest circle, like, just show up anyway. People are going to be resistant to help, but it's the right thing to do.
They can only learn what to do by being shown. And so
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
can be a domino effect.
For
you
sure.
can be a good friend even when maybe they're not the best friend,
Yeah.
but they're learning.
Yep.
They haven't ever had this illustrated to them.
Yeah.
So we learn together.
Yep.
Because you've definitely, I think, a lot of your friendship characteristics have molded over into mine. And I think the same, and
Yep.
it's made something that I think is beautiful, and I can't wait to learn more ways to be good friends.
Absolutely.
This is pretty overwhelming for
Pretty
a
overwhelming, yeah.
lot. And I think it's so important to note that you cannot do this with 150 people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you
this
can't.
isn't for everyone. You can't show up for everyone.
No.
You can't let everyone in. You can't be vulnerable with everyone, for sure.
Yeah. And in the Jenny Allen book, Find Your People, she kind of gives this pyramid, and it pretty much says that you can really only have the capacity for about 150 people, just even to know them.
Which is interesting, thinking about social media today. When you look at kids and they're like 750, 1,000 friends, and it's like, we can't even handle that many people.
And interesting enough, I even think about like the church and stuff. I mean, these huge churches that are around that are thousands and thousands of people. It's like, wow, you have no capacity to really know any of those people. So we have the capacity for 150 people. And then she breaks down the pyramid to say that we have acquaintances of about 50, right?
Yep.
So people that we interact with, we probably would call them friends, right? Or like
you would
friendly.
say hi to, you know them by name.
Yeah. And maybe do a few things with them if you thought about them for a particular activity or whatnot.
Her example was like people you send your Christmas cards to, right? Or something like that.
Or maybe even somebody that was a little closer at one point in your life, but has drifted into more of like, I care about you, I love you, I want to know what's going on in your life, but you're not my people. And then the interesting part is then that funnels down to the 15 people of a village. And those are the people that you really are doing a lot of life with. I mean, you probably aren't calling all 15 when you're having major crisis moments. I think that's a little much, but they know what's going on in your life, and they're helping you with your children, and you would feel okay with calling them and say, I really need this favor. Can you please do this? You're going to tell them about some of your biggest accomplishments and things like that. And then it funnels down to about 2 to 5 really, really close do life people. And when you think about that, I think it's doable.
2 to 5 close people. So we don't need a ton. But the people we let in, we need to do the things that we were talking about. But what I found interesting when she was talking about this model was just how within our culture, the step that we often miss is the village, the 15, right? How we all can think of 50 people we could, who are acquaintances. And most people probably, although now we're learning, of course, a lot of people don't have this, but many people have a close friend, right? One or two. But it's like to have that village that just helps you, supports you through day-to-day stuff. Maybe this is at work, in your neighborhood, at your church, in a social group you go to, whatever it may be. We're really missing out on that aspect. Yeah.
I think this is the village that we talk about in other cultures that they do have, you know, and they've prioritized mainly because we have a lot of resources, right? We all have cars, we don't need a lot. And I think if we really, we try to be intentional about our village. So that is our challenge for this week is think about your village. Yes. Do you have a village? If you don't, then we want to help you start creating your village. So that is next week.
Yes. So tune in. We'll talk about how to find your people and
how to keep them.
Yeah. So this week, look for who's around you. Think about your people. Think about your village. Why, Jade?
Because we love you.